Good morning, everybody. I'm Ann Christensen, a licensed prayer practitioner here at Light on the Mountains. And now it is time to relax a little and take a deep breath and go within. There is one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. I know that there is one universal spirit, one infinite intelligence, one divine presence, one creative force. That force, that presence, that intelligence, that spirit, that source, that is all there is, but it is within everything within the universe, and it is within every person here at Light on the Mountains, and with every person everywhere and everything everywhere. And I am so grateful for that philosophy that Ernest Holmes brought to us, and which makes this place so very, very special. And I give thanks for that and this and all the people that make it do what it does and make it such a wonderful community, including all of those here today. And I give thanks for everything and the lovely sunshine. And together we say, and so it is. My reading today is not exactly what I went looking for, but I found this wonderful book in my bedroom place where I keep all wonderful books. And it is called Can We Talk to God? And it's lectures by Ernest Holmes. Now, I have to tell you that these were first made into a book the year I was born. So they've been around a while. But they're still wonderful, and I picked out Chapter 8 on becoming receptive to the divine. It's a little long, so be patient with me, please. We are surrounded by an infinite mind, which, should we become receptive to it, could acquaint us with anything and everything. I would like, however, to differentiate between the thought of being surrounded by ideas and the thought of being surrounded by an infinite mind. Ideas are the product of mind. Hence, mind is the father of ideas. There could be no thought without a thinker that conceives them, surrounded by an infinite intelligence, which is the mind of God and the potential storehouse of all possible knowledge. This must be true if we are dealing with the mind of God. This infinite mind is the cause of all that is and the ultimate of all. It is open to us as our thought is receptive to it. So an inventor draws inventive genius from it, a painter the inspiration to paint. What we draw from this mind is always capitalized, by the way. What we draw from this mind is, of course, poured through the avenues of our own consciousness and interpreted in our act. In this way, each is an individualization of the universal spirit. We are striking at the very root of philosophic thought. How is it that the eternal mind, the one back of everything, can differentiate and personify itself in numberless ways without changing its nature? Let us go into the garden where there are a dozen varieties of plants. All come from one creative soil through one law in that soil, all rooted in the same medium, each bringing forth according to the nature of the seed involved. In the same way, spirit manifests itself through many individuals. No two are alike. Each has a unique place in the universe of mind. Each lives in it. Without it, no one could live, for each individual life is rooted in the wellspring of eternal existence. We each contact it through our own mentality in an individual way, drawing from it an expression which satisfies us. For instance, we're surrounded by the idea of beauty. Whoever dwells upon beauty tends to become beautiful. There will be a grace and charm expressing itself through that person, which no one can fail to recognize and appreciate. If we make ourselves receptive to the idea of love, we become lovable. To the degree that we embody love, we are love. This is why people who love are loved. It does not pay to hate. Hate is a human idea. Love is a divine verity. If we make ourselves receptive to the ideas of peace, poise, and calm, calling upon these divine realities, we find them flowing through us, and we become peaceful, poised, and calm. We have mental equilibrium and balance. Try this someday when you feel distraught, discouraged, agitated, and irritated. Sit down with yourself, for there is a self within you that is real. No one can ever enter here but yourself, for it is you. Therefore, sit with yourself, that you may meet yourself, that the inner self may talk to the outer self. Speak to it, calling it peace, if it is peace you need. Say, perfect me within me, just as though you were talking to a person, or my peace within me, which is perfect. Come forth and express through me. And musing on this, meditating upon it, being receptive to it, not forcing, not coercing, but allowing, you will find that the physical body will relax. Your agitation will disappear, confidence and peace will follow, and balance will be gained. So we might say of other ideas such as life, joy, love, harmony, of any idea we desire to embody. So we might say of any of these things. We are dealing with the creative intelligence of the universe. It is the mind and the intelligence back of all, through all and in all. It is that without which there could be no human thinking. If you are an inventor and do not quite grasp the idea you need, what do? Look within yourself for the answer. Say, creative, inventive genius within me, the knower, that which I wish to know about this particular thing is now known to me. Make your words specific and direct. When the universal mind flows through the individual, it comes to the surface of the conscious mind as an actual experience. Truth comes from the inner to the outer self, from God, the universal spirit, to God, the manifest person. For every person is a direct manifestation of God. There is a greater mind within each one which may be called upon. There's nothing too small or too great for this mind. Listen, exclamation point. Great purpose in life is always, consciously or unconsciously, holding this purpose up to the universal influx, thus causing an outpouring of divine wisdom through his or her own individual mind. I believe that all great people have done this. They may not have known or believed that they were doing it. They may not have known or believed that, I read that twice. But I think that all who have achieved success in any branch of life have used this power consciously or unconsciously. It makes no difference whether we say ideas come from God or from humanity, for when we get back to the real person, we cannot separate that person from God. God, the universal, individualizes in each person all our personifications of the same spirit. The spirit is one and not two. It is a perfect whole. Feel that it expresses itself directly through you. Feel that it expresses itself directly through you is your guiding star in every enterprise. Go not thou in search of him, but to thyself repair. Wait thou within the silence dim, and thou shalt find him there. There is a side to us which lies open to the infinite. The infinite wisdom becomes human knowledge in such degree as the human furnishes a channel through which it may flow. Greatest men who have lived have recognized this fact. They have consciously expected it, consciously accepted it, consciously received it, and there came a time when they consciously felt it flowing through them. If we need divine guidance, we should consciously call for it, saying, "Perfect spirit within, which cannot be mistaken, acquaint my mind," or let the infinite intelligence within me acquaint my mind. Tell me what to do, that it may come forth into personal expression. But bring it through. Do not leave it up in the air. Here is the difference between a dreamer and the practical man. The dreamer is always floating around in the clouds. The practical people keep their thought in the clouds and their feet on the earth. In this way, they bring heaven to earth through themselves. This is necessary. Let us keep the dream side open, as it is the beautiful side of our natures. It is the meditative, contemplative side, the subtle side, forever merged with the universe, and is at one with good. Since this inner self is in continuous connection with the outer self, it can cause a flow of intelligence, stimulating the mind and brain to purposefulness, to creative genius, to executive ability. There is something in the most practical which longs for this still, silent presence. When we spend our entire time in objective things, never getting back to the higher self, we are piling brick upon brick, sooner or later to see them fall about us in ruin. The toiler dies in a day unless the dreamer refreshes and invigorates him with that divine influx which comes from the inner self, which never tires, fed by the deep eternal fires. There is a place in us open to the infinite, but when Spirit brings its gift by pouring itself through us, it can only give to us what we take. The taking is mental. If we persist in saying life will not give us that which is good, it cannot, for life must interpret itself to us through our intelligence. Let the unhappy call upon joy, it is indwelling, that joy which sings in the dark and dances in the sunlight, the joy of an eternal sense of completion which must be inherent in the divine mind. Let us open our consciousness to its influx, that it may enrapture the soul, that joy which Lowell tells us climbs to a soul in the grass and flowers. This joy already is within. Let the sad and depressed call upon this wellspring of joy within, that it may overflow. We cannot be depressed when we contact its surge. Mind rests in action. The spirit is never weary. God does not have to sleep. Let the one who is depleted in vitality call upon the vital force within him. It is life energy, perfect life, complete life within me, not somewhere else. Let that within me, which is life, force, power, vitality, come forth. Sense it, listen to it, receive it, expect it, take it. As this individualization of spirit takes place, it penetrates the finite consciousness. It saturates the human personality with the essence of its own being and radiates a power and reality that is sublime. Call upon me and I will answer. Onlook the deity, and the deity will onlook thee. Act as though I am, and I will be. God in man as man is man. And that's 1934. It should have said man and woman. Let us be receptive to the divine nature, that it may flow into our everyday living. New arts, new sciences, new religions, better government, and a higher civilization wait on our thought. The pent-up energy of life and the possibility of human evolution works through our imagination and will. The time is ready, the place is where we are now, and it is done unto all as they really believe and act. And thank you for listening to that. And now it is time to read our affirmation for December, which is in red at the top of this insert. Let's read it together. I embrace the consciousness of positive change and transformation, knowing it contributes to the greater good of all. Good. And now, some special music.
Thank you, Ann. Good morning, everyone. Thought of the day. Let me see if I can weave a couple of things together. About 40 years ago, I won't go through all the years between then and now, but about 40 years ago, I was in my youngish 20s, and I was working with an actress who was very much older than me, about at least 5 years younger than I am now. And I wrote an opening night card to her, and it's one of the most brilliant people I've ever worked with. And she said to me, "Oh, I will cherish your card forever. I've put it in that box where I keep the most special things." I thought, she has a box where she keeps, I don't know where, I can't find my toothbrush in the morning. I'm 20-something. And I've thought about that for a long time. And Nancy was only with us for probably another 8 or 9 years. But I imagined that my opening night card lived in that box. And she said, on the days when I don't feel so great, that's the box I go to. So that made me feel pretty great. So fast forward all the way till about, 7, 8 years ago. I was working with a student here, and I said something that I hoped was at least semi-profound. And she reached into her backpack and pulled out this little book, and she opened it up, and she wrote. And I thought, she's writing down what I said. Well, she only wrote for like a second. And I said, "Can I ask?" And she said, "Oh yeah, that's the book where I write down my most favorite words." So it wasn't the thought, it wasn't the idea, it was a word in the middle of the thought. There was the word that fascinated her. And she showed me there were pages of little handwriting of words, a couple of columns on each page, and by now, multiple pages. And I said, "Wow, do you go back and read those words?" And she looked at me and said, "It'd be kind of silly to have it if I didn't." Right. You have a book of things that matter to you. Well, fast forward to last Sunday. Last Sunday was one of those lovely days in my life. I started here, then I went to a rehearsal with the Wood River Orchestra, then Caritas Chorale did a sing-along at St. Thomas, and then back to play the concert with the orchestra. I was so happy to be able to sit in with them. But at the end of the sing-along, this lovely lady came up to me, and she said, "Thank you." And I said, "Oh, you're so welcome." She said, No. I really need to say thank you." And I realized I was supposed to, in this busy day, spend a minute with this woman and not do the gratuitous, "Oh, that's really nice, I'm glad you enjoyed it." But I said, "You're so welcome." She said, "Oh, I don't decorate my house anymore. I don't put up a tree anymore. I just had Christmas." A box full of things that matter. A book of things that matter. That concert mattered more than I knew. I didn't know all of its value. I thought the group sang pretty well, and people had fun singing along, and I figured that was all great, and it was. But that, for her, belonged in her box. It belonged in her book. And if she hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known that. So I was grateful that she had shared. And what I had said in the middle of the concert was, keep your eyes open, because I think miracles happen around us all the time. We just don't always pay attention to them. Merry Christmas. Good morning, John.
Good morning, R.L. Good morning, Max. Good morning, everyone here. I'm hoping I'm saying good morning to people at home. We started a new streaming service. Today is the launch. Send us an email if you're watching. We'd like to know if you're actually there. So see how this goes. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Christmas is here. The snow is not. And I'm not complaining about that, actually. So in Light of the Mountains, we come from what we call the New Thought tradition. So the question is, how do we deal with Christmas? I mean, people ask us all the time because we're not a Christian denomination. If you go to a Catholic Mass or St. Thomas or any other Christian church today, you would be hearing about Christmas in a completely different way than we talk about it. And in the New Thought tradition, there's not this idea that there's right and there's wrong. There's just different ways to approach it. So at the core of New Thought, just as a reminder, we don't have messiahs or prophets or people up on the mountaintop that brings down tablets to tell us what the Word of God is. We are a philosophy that I like to think is compatible with most people's religious thought. Maybe not all of it, but that there would be pieces. And certainly over the years here, we have people who go to different churches that drop in for just a little something else to augment what they do. And that always pleases me, that they're not here to give up what they do, but like to add to it. I really like that. So when we look at the Christmas story, we're not looking in terms of, again, how Christian churches look at it. We're not looking at Jesus as a Messiah or a little son of God, and he may very well be, but we just don't go there. So we look at the stories of Christmas, and of course all the stories in the Bible, and to look at them as not just stories of other people, but examples how they can be our story. That there's many different layers of understanding and learning, and you can debate whether the stories are historical or completely made up or somewhere in between, that the stories were devised to teach us something. And so every year I'm at a different part of the story to think, well, what can I learn this year? What is different? And the question in my mind the last few weeks have been, so when is guidance really guidance? Do you ever wonder that? We open ourselves, hopefully, up to that wholeness and divine connection, a connection to all there is, and ask for guidance. And as I've said many times over the last forever, I don't, in a sense, use spiritual practice or prayer to hopefully get items into my life. My prayer is always for guidance, to see the door that's open that I haven't seen yet. That I believe that prayer is answered through ideas as opposed to things just kind of falling on your doorstep. Maybe things fall on your doorstep. But for me, it's always the ideas. But the question is, so when are those ideas from that deep connection, and when is it just our egos going crazy? I mean, don't we often wonder that? And I think the whole Christmas story has examples how to do that. For one, it is a story about following guidance, like the star. So, not to upset anybody, but I don't think how the star is presented is historically accurate. I don't think that there was a disembodied star that moved across the Holy Land and only 3 guys on a camel could see it. I mean, wouldn't you think it'd be news? You know, a floating, wasn't there a TV show when I was a kid that was a floating ball to sing along with? So it's like, you follow the, I really don't. I really don't think that happened. But they were following something. Something told them that it was time to take a trip, that something amazing was happening. And when you even look at how the story is presented, that if you go to different Christian churches around the valley, you'll see they'll have a nativity scene. And it's presented as a moment in time where everything came together. In other words, and I don't think this is historically accurate, but let's go with the larger idea. The shepherds, the magi, and the camels, and the sheep, and everybody just came for that moment, that it all came together. And some had a star, other had choirs of angels, others just had this idea that something was amazing had happened, and they all together came for a moment and of inner guidance. And again, I'm not saying that it had to be historically accurate, but there was a sense something was happening and they were drawn to it. So you could say in the context of that story, their guidance, they were in touch with a deeper sense of what was happening and who they are, and with connection. And so that's what we need to start to train ourselves to be able to tell the difference. When is it guidance? When is it just me going nuts in my head? And it's so interesting. People like to tell me stories, where they are, what they're doing, what they would like to do, about their own guidance. And not that I would ever judge. But there are moments in this storytelling that that voice inside of me says this might be unlikely to happen. And again, I can be proven wrong. So the idea is we all at times can delude ourselves a little bit, that we want something to happen so badly that we just go do it anyway and say, yeah, well, I prayed about this and this is what came in my brain, and you go in that direction. And we all have examples of how it really wasn't the right direction. So we need to fine-tune again the effort that comes in here. And that's, again, the whole point of spiritual practice is to put down our human barriers to be able to listen and to get beyond to what I think I want to really what is my path. A great example for me is when I was looking for a job many years ago and I ended up here. And there really was that intuitive thing when we kind of met up with phone calls and all that. This was the place. And there was part of me that really thought it was a really crazy idea that I would do that. But in a sense, it felt like the right thing. On the other hand, a few months before, there was someone else that was interested in me. And it wasn't like I was cheating on you, and I didn't know you yet. But it fit, it crossed all the boxes of what I thought is what I needed, or would be the best thing, as I was, had just recently finished the School of Ministry. And it just seemed so right for so many reasons. And I went there, like here. You go for like a 3-day thing and you meet everybody and you do workshops and do Sunday services. And they were lovely people. And I think I've told this story before. And I just wanted it so badly. It's like I went to school for 3 years to get the master's, and I was just kind of floating with no real career, just had a job, really want to get on with it. Let's just go do it. Let's just even work on my resume, even if it's not the right job. And a friend of mine called me after the 3-day thing. He said, how did it go? I said, well, it went okay. And he said, well, how do you feel about it? And I said, and this was a really good friend, so I could tell her this. I said, I don't know which makes my stomach upset more, them offering me the job or them not offering me the job. Now, you would think that would be a sign. But as I look back, and they never did offer me the job, and they never even told me that they weren't going to offer me the job, so I guess I could leave at any moment. The call is going to come 20 years later. But I always wonder, if they had offered it to me, would I have had the courage to turn it down? I mean, think of that. We've all had that thing that, maybe it's a job or something else that was up in the air, a decision was not yet made, and you knew it wasn't the right thing. But yet, you knew that if it was offered to you, there might be a chance that you would take it anyway, and that our human selves would come up with a reason. There were a lot of reasons human-wise that I could have taken that. Like I said, work on my resume. When I apply for the next thing, I could say that I've had a job already in this field. There's any number of logical things that I could have said that would have seemed valid. But what is interesting is that I would have been probably so involved there that I would have never ended up here. So it wouldn't be like I'm just like, spinning my wheels there and you guys call me and I go, well, never mind, I'll see you later, and go over here. It puts, any decision we make puts us on a path. So I am so grateful that I didn't have the opportunity to see if I had the courage to turn it down, because I'm not really sure what I would have done. Because like I said, it ticked off the boxes. It seemed so right in so many ways, and I could have easily have talked myself into doing something that I knew that was wrong for me to do. So again, as we seek to have that guidance within us, I think ultimately we know. So in looking at when is inspiration, I wrote in my blog this week about one of my favorite passages that I've return to this year. I've mentioned it years before, but coming back to it. So one thing that I love about the Christmas story is that there's more Christmas stories than you know about. That when they were putting the New Testament together, there was certain things that made the cut and many that did not. And so there's all these writings and gospels and manuscripts pouring out there that are great inspiration. And again, doesn't have to be historically accurate to be inspirational. And so one of my favorite ones, again, this year that I returned to, that I wrote about, was something called the Infancy Gospel of James. Again, not in the regular Bible. And talks about this thing called the drink test. And I love this. So in this version of the Christmas story, of course, this is leading up, Mary is, as they say, with child, under questionable means. And so she and Joseph, can you imagine? It's like, how did this happen? Usually our parents have like, well, you know how that happened. But it's like, how did this happen? And so, and they believe that it's been supernaturally, took place. And so they go talk to the priest at the temple to just kind of like, because, well, there's consequences in that part of the world at that time in history if you did not have it under acceptable means. And so they go to tell the priest of, guess what? Mary is with child, and it happened by God, not by anyone else. And again, it reminds me of some of the stories that come to me, and I go, really? That's interesting. Not with anyone ever in this room, though. Or anyone out on there right now, even though I don't know if you're out there, but it never happened with any of you. But so the priest is like, oh, really? So we have a special test for this, these occasions especially, but I love this. So he says, we're going to give both Joseph and Mary the drink test. First Joseph, and if it works out for him, then we're going to go to Mary. And the way that this works is that first you take a drink of a sacred beverage, and I don't know what that was, and then you are then to go out into the wilderness and to the desert for several days without any provisions. And if you are telling the truth, God will provide everything for you, and of course you will come back alive. And if you don't come back, that means, well, guess they weren't telling the truth. Got bit by a scorpion or something. I don't know how that works. But anyways, Joseph is sent out. Several days, again, he returns. And they say, well, Joseph is telling the truth as he knows it. So let's get to Mary, because this is where the incident really happened. And let's send her out and then see what happens. And she returns. And in this little lovely passage, the priest declares this as miraculous and that it was so. So how can we do the drink test for ourselves? Remember, this is not literal. You don't need to drive to Nevada in the summer and park your car and go running out into the field. You really don't. It's really not what I'm saying. But again, this is all metaphorical. It's all symbolic. So what is taking a sacred drink to me? To me, that is setting an intention with no attachments. We're more accustomed to setting intentions with attachments, aren't we? I want this to happen. So setting an intention without attachments is seeking to know the truth and the truth of your path and direction without any human input and opinion from you. It's a pure intention rather than saying, God, Spirit, this is what I want. It's saying, what do you think? That's a big thing for us to just, like, God, anything could happen if I'm just leaving it wide open there. Can I put a few restrictions here? The drink test is no restrictions, no parameters. You're saying, you figure it out. I'm here as an open vessel. Be guided. That's actually pretty scary because we'd like to say, I'm in 90%. There's just this one little thing I'd really, if you could arrange it not to happen. I don't want that to happen. Drink test has got to be 100%. And so to begin just an inward path of discovery with no attachments, and as I say in the drink test, to walk in the wilderness, meaning that you are now going to take your path in that intention and see where you are guided to go. And saying you're doing it without provisions is, again, without any conditions. And it's not life or death, but the whole point on this is like in the drink test, how are things showing up? Did food and shelter show up for Mary and Joseph along the way unexpectedly? Or as I say, things show up in time and on time. I think we've all had experience where we've had just synchronicity in our lives. We knew that we were on the right path, and it was just like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't even have the money to do this, but I'm going to go do it. And it is not an ego thing where you just go and it just magically works. Not to say magically, but you're on the right path. So things get provided along the way. So that's the essence of wandering in the wilderness. Again, think of anything that turned out just perfectly in your life. You look back now, you can just see, isn't it amazing how things just lined up? And a lot of it seemed to happen unconsciously on my part, but it just lined up. Also, if you were consciously doing the drink test in your life, and maybe you have put your toe too much in the water of human ego, notice how it's not working. I mean, you really notice how it's not working, how things aren't showing up. And this is not to say that the other path is free from challenges. It's saying just look how you flow through the challenges as opposed to just continually hitting your head against a brick wall. And of course, the whole point of the Christmas story is that we eventually get to the conclusion where there is a birth of something new, or as we say, new thought, the birth of the consciousness of the Christ within all things. It's there already, but it's a sense of we recognize it. We invite the experience in for us. So the consciousness of the Christ is just not about someone like Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad. The story shows that it is our story, and it happens within us. But I think the only way that we truly get there is on some level to do the drink test. So, in this next big week, Christmas is a week from today, and where are you not going to be Sunday morning next week? Where are you not going to be? Not going to be here. Not going to be here. Just Christmas Eve. So just imagine that. Let's just imagine this week. Let's do a drink test together. Just like Christian churches do Advent, let's do a one-week Advent. Just open yourself up to say, the Spirit Divine, you decide how to point me in my life direction here. And even with the intention of getting some sort of inspiration or guidance for that greater birth from a week today, the symbolic birth, that know that I'm going to recognize that birth of the Christ consciousness within me at the very least from a week from today. Let's just see how that journey goes. And you know, you can even put it on the back burner. It's funny how when you set that intention, it just works anyway. So with that, let's just go within. And give thanks for our time together. Give thanks for all that there is. Give thanks for this amazing life that we live here in this Wood River Valley. And knowing right here and now, we open our hearts and our minds to the greater purpose of our lives. We say yes with no conditions. We say yes, willingly walk that path, even if we aren't quite sure where it is leading us. But we know that if we follow that path with open hearts and minds, that all will show up in time and on time as needed along the way. And for this, we give thanks. And in this thanksgiving, we just release this intention into the hearts and mind of spirit, into the universe. We release all attachments, knowing that it will come back to us then in perfection. And so it is.